Hey guys, so I wanted to just jump on here. I just got back from having a little late happy hour with one of my Jewish associates, and we were kind of just discussing everything that went on with these shootings and racism in general, because as I've already established, no non-black person, especially white person, is going to really be around me or talk to me and then ignore racism. So before I went out to her to meet up with her, I was kind of thinking about some other factors that contribute to racism, why we don't have that much progress. I was looking on Facebook and seeing the utter disgusting, coon, pathetic, passive, praying Christian slave mentality that a lot of black people have. And I was also looking at the patheticness that are interracial couples. And I don't care if you're a black man or a black woman, if you're dating a white person, especially while everything is going on now, it's just in direct contradiction to what is going on. Like, you can't really think that someone's going to take you seriously while you're laid up with white people, and then you're complaining about racism by white people. By your actions, you're saying one of two things. You're saying either, number one, racism is not that bad because it's not bad enough for you to separate yourself from the group of people that you're with that are white, or racism is worth it because you get to lay up with a white person. Here's the thing that I feel like no one is going to take you seriously until you take yourself seriously. The actions of black people is in complete contradiction to what they're saying. And this is simply why nothing is changing. And then you have a bunch of coons on Facebook saying that all lives matter. The thing of it is anyone who says that all lives matter as a counter to Black Lives Matter, you are by default saying that Black lives are not included in all lives, and that Black lives is a separate entity than all other lives. Because the thing of it is if all lives matter, then you shouldn't need to counter Black Lives Matter with all lives matter, because saying Black Lives Matter should be a representative of all lives mattering, unless Black lives just are not included in all lives matter. So the only way you would separate those two is if Black lives indeed isn't included in all lives. And then America has a history of showing that Black lives are the only lives that actually do not matter. That's the thing. We wouldn't be saying that all lives mattered if America had shown that Black lives matter. So the fact that we have to say it means that they don't matter. Do you really think that if we felt as black people, because no other race of people can tell black people what we feel. You can't validate or invalidate what we feel because you don't know, because you're not black. So if we thought that Black Lives Matter, we would not be saying Black Lives Matter. If we're saying that Black Lives Matter, then that means that someone and a lot of different people have been showing us that Black lives indeed does not matter. And let me say it again for the cerebrally impaired people who just don't get it. America has a history. It was founded on Black lives not having any type of value. So the thing of it is really we're late saying Black Lives Matters. We should have been saying it. The fact we have to say it because America shows every day, white people in America show every day that Black lives indeed do not matter. And the thing of it is if you're silent in it, then you're complying with Black lives not matter, being a life that does not matter. The interesting thing is that no one was saying that all lives matter until black people started saying Black Lives Matter. So that should tell you a lot too. When you live in a system of white supremacy, white supremacists will come up with something just to try to squash what you're saying, because they didn't seem to care about all lives. No one was starting an all lives matter movement until black people started saying Black Lives Matter. So when people say all lives matter, to me, you're just saying, no, black lives don't matter. All other lives do matter. And you're being consistent with the theme of America since it's been established that black lives are the only ones that don't matter. So from here on out, if I hear or see on my social media a black person saying all lives matter, you're getting blocked. If I see a white person saying all lives matter, you're getting blocked if you're on my social media account. Now, my thing of it is that I talk a lot about the fact that I don't like interracial dating. I think it's very toxic for the black community. I think it's counterproductive. There isn't anything that's come out that's been beneficial to black people as a result of interracial dating, except for the fact that they're having sex with a white person. But that's so meaningless, and it does not matter. And the sad thing is, even though they're having sex with white people, they're still not getting anything out of it. And you know, a lot of you black people, you can say that, oh, interracial dating became acceptable simply because a white man wanted to marry a black woman. So you can say that as an attempt to prove whatever you're trying to prove, but all you're doing is proving my point that white supremacists do not do anything that does not benefit them. So by you saying that interracial, the laws were changed as a result to a white man wanting to marry a black woman, you're proving my point, because you're proving then that white supremacists don't do anything to benefit black people if it doesn't benefit them more. Now, my thing is that when I give you these stories, which I'm going to read to you some conversations again from some white supremacist males off this dating site who literally I can tell them 10 and 15 different times to go away, they will not go away. Now, as I said, my profile states, literally the first line of my profile says, if you are white, do not message me. So I still get messages from a ton of white men, and new white men try to message me every day. I get on here and I entertain these conversations because I want to talk to a white man. I simply do not care about that. The majority of them I actually ignore. I do this because I want to show you guys how the mentality of these white people do not change regardless to if you're dating them. Okay, these are different white men that come to me and they tell me, oh, I've dated black people, I have black friends, and then when you delve into their psyches and you ask the right questions, then they're going to reveal that they're a white supremacist, and they never fail me. So one dude came to me and he got so deep into his white supremacist rhetoric that, do you know, he started talking about how bad of a president Obama was? Like, this dude was a full-blown white supremacist. But so, let me just go over the conversation. And the interesting thing is, while he was messaging me, another white man was messaging me as well. And I'll read you the conversation with him as well. So, again, I'll say it in this video like I did with the last one. The white supremacist trolls, you can spare me all your blabber about white men not wanting to date me. Again, tell that to the numerous amount of white men that stay in my inbox, because at this point I get more messages from white men than black men. I get them from black men and Asian men and Indian men as well, but by and large the majority of them are white men, despite the fact that my profile says I don't date white men. So explain to me, white supremacist trolls, if white men don't like me so much, why do they stay in my inbox campaigning more than any other race of men, despite the fact that my profile says, the first line says, if you're a white man, do not message me. So, you can be in your feelings and offended as much as you want to. You can deflect as much as you want to. If white men really didn't want me, the first title should scare them away. I just shouldn't be getting any messages, but I keep getting messages with them. And not only that is, I repeatedly tell them to kick rocks, and they still message me. Just like this dude, case in point. So anyway, he hit me up and said, hey, and I said, you do know my profile says I don't date white men, right? So he goes, oh, well, why not? And I said, because it's pointless to date white men while racism is a huge issue and is perpetuated and carried out by white men. So he responds and says, oh, well, that's a shame. He says, I have a lot of black friends. I've dated several black women in the past. I think you're really beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes on to say, I don't stand for racism. So I said, so since you're so against racism, what are you trying to do to end it so your black friends and ex-black girlfriends don't have to be affected by it? And I said, people who are against things do something to change them. So what are you doing to end white supremacy? And then he says, oh, me as one man, I can't end white supremacy on my own. The world's problems are more deeper than white supremacy. And I said, the world's problems are white supremacy, and it only took MLK, who was one man, to spark the change needed to end Jim Crow. Rosa Parks was one woman, and she sparked change. Harriet Tubman was one woman, And both of them made big changes, so that's a cop-out. And then I said, if not white supremacy, what is America's biggest issue? And then I said, Hitler was also one man that convinced Germans to put the Jews in ovens, so you can do plenty. So then he goes, the corrupt government is the biggest problem. And then he goes, I'm starting to think that you're racist. Now, in the mind of a white supremacist, this is typically what they do. If they're not trying to normalize it by saying everyone's racist, which the other white man is going to do, then they'll try to tell you that you're racist because you're speaking out against racism. Let me just tell you this. This shows me that black people spend way too much of their time making white people feel comfortable with racism. Understand that white people do not like me specifically because I'm not going to make you feel comfortable being a white supremacist, okay? They can tell if a black person just wants to be around a white person, and they'll go along to get along. So they're going to sit there and cling to the people who don't mention racism to them because that makes them feel comfortable. That makes them not have to be held accountable for the system that they benefit from. That makes them feel comfortable. So they are going to not want to be around a person like me, and of course they're going to lash out. They're going to throw a white supremacist tantrum. They're going to call me racist because I'm not letting you be around me or talk to me while I have to live in a system which I'm affected by white supremacy, and I'm not going to just allow you to ignore it. So that's why I say interracial dating by and large is a result of black people's low self-esteem, because anyone that will get into a relationship with any person, especially a white person, when you live in a system of white supremacy that you're deeply affected by, and you don't require them to do anything except be white around you, you don't require them to speak out for your cause, you don't require them to do anything to act like they are interested in dismantling the system of white supremacy that they benefit from and you're affected by, you have low self-esteem. It's the same as being in a relationship with anyone and you just let them run amok, you let them disrespect you, you don't set boundaries, you don't set standards or any expectations, you just let them do whatever you want to do. So that's what I feel about black people dating white people while there's a lot of racism. Now, this is not to say that all white people are racist, because I don't think that all white people are racist. I think very few of them are actually not racist. I think there are some people who have a genuine concern for disabling the white supremacist infrastructure. The majority of them benefit from it, so they don't really care. So this dude comes back and he goes, oh, I'm beginning to think you're racist. So I said, are you one of those ignorant people that think racism is talking about racism and how it's a problem? And then I said, racism is being offended by people who call out racism. That means you support racism, which is why I don't date white men, because they think like you. And I'm like, you just proved that I'm making the right decision. Silence about racism is compliance about racism. So then he comes back and says, oh, give me an example of how white supremacy is a problem in society today. So I said, if you need an example of white supremacy in society, you're not worth the explanation. Give me an example of how white supremacy doesn't affect society today. And then I said, I'm sickened at the thought of a black woman dating you. And then he goes, oh, well, you're so ignorant and uneducated. And I said, and you're a white supremacist, so stop talking to me. I already said that I don't like white men. And then he's like, oh, well, you just want to come on here and bash white men and just all this stupid stuff. So I say, you're proving my point, genius. You are a white supremacist. Because he says, oh, I'm not a white supremacist. You're just ignorant and hateful. And I said, you're proving my point, genius. You are a white supremacist. White supremacists always deflect, deny racism, and then try to call people out who speak out against racism racist. You deny racism because you want it to continue. You can see racism in me speaking out against racism, but you can't see it in society or yourself, and I'm supposed to think you're not a white supremacist. And he's like, oh, well, you just dislike white men and all you want to do is bash white men. So I said, I dislike white men because of white men like you. No, I bash white supremacists like you. Didn't I already tell you to go away? And then he goes, oh, you're just about as dumb as our president. And I'm like, and I'm sure you don't think the president is dumb because he's black. Go away, seed of Hitler. And the thing of it is after this, I blocked the dude. Because clearly he's going to keep being on my phone, and I don't have time for it. But if you can see, they always want to go into this rhetoric about how you're racist. You're racist not because you're actually doing anything racist to them, but because you're speaking out against racism. See, this is that manipulation tactic, and unfortunately a lot of black people tend to fall for this. They will sit there and think not liking a white person or calling them out on racism is being racist. Which the real funny thing is, racism doesn't have anything to do with you not liking a person. It has nothing to do with me not liking white men. I could say I hate white men completely, and that wouldn't make me racist, because that me not liking white men has nothing to do with white men being white per se. It has more to do with their ignorant attitude, where they want to sit here and co-sign and ignore racism. So that's why racism is what it is, or that's why I don't deal with white people. It doesn't have anything to do with them being white. But the thing of it is they like to pull this manipulation on you, because they just want you to stop talking to them. And look, even right now, 2 more white dudes, as I'm speaking to you, are sending me messages right now. And it's like, the fact that they just don't take a hint is just beyond me. And then this one dude is going to say, I may be white, but ladies of color seem to give me a pass. Perhaps you will. Actually, no. It's like, I don't give people a pass. And see, the thing of it is they want to come on here and campaign because and it's like, no, I'm not give you a pass for what? It's like, you're not getting the pass. It's like, and so I'm going to ask him, what are you doing to end white supremacy? We're going to see what he says. And then this other white dude, he just wants to be on here and say hi. So anyway, he's not getting any response. But like I said, so these white dudes, they always want to sit here and campaign. They don't know what to do with a black person that just doesn't really care to be around them or date them. That's why I have so many white supremacist trolls on my comments trying to scream racism, because they've been in this state where black people have been catering to their feelings for so long, they honestly do not know what to do with a black person who simply does not want to be bothered by them. I'm not saying you should be discriminated against. I'm not saying you should be exterminated. I'm not saying you should be hung from trees. I'm not saying I'm going to throw you outside and make you pick cotton. I'm not saying I'm going to set up a whole structure to keep you from benefiting. I'm not saying I'm going to lock you out the workforce. I'm not going to miseducate you. I'm not going to mass incarcerate you. I'm just saying I don't want you on my phone. I don't want to bother with you at all. But for some reason, this is so shocking to the psyche of white people, and I think that it's because of the fact, specifically white men, because mind you, white men are denied nothing in society. They have access to everything, even black women's body, which I think is a detrimental mistake. You're not going to come lay up over here. You're not going to. You're not going to lay up over here and ignore racism, and I'm not giving you a pass just because some other low self-esteem having women of color, whatever that means, gave you a pass. Get off of out of my inbox. Now, let me read you the messages from what this other white guy said, because I want you to see the mentality of these people. And the thing about it is black people who want to date white people, they could find out very easily whether they're dealing with a white supremacist simply by asking them questions and talking to them about racism. But a lot of them don't do that because they need to make white people feel comfortable. They want to coddle white people. They just want some attention from a white person. And it's like, I'm not trying to get your attention. I don't care. I want you to not give me your attention, and I can't seem to not get them to not give me their attention. So he goes, hi, how's your weekend been? So I said, quick question, does racism and white supremacy still exist? So he says, sure does on both sides. Now, this is what they do. They normalize it. They want to say that racism, all people can be racist. Not racism. They want to sit here and say, oh, all people can be racist, because they don't want you to understand that racism was thought of implemented, carried out, and is being maintained by white people only. Racism isn't a thing that's intercultural. It is a white cultural phenomenon, okay? White people created, defined, maintained white supremacy and racism. But what they'll do is they'll try to tell you that all people are racist when they're not. All people can be bigoted, they can be prejudiced, but they can't be racist because they want to sit there and try to tell you racism is just you not liking them. And it's not you just liking them. And you guys need to stop falling for them, making it out to be me disliking you or a negative opinion of you. So anyways, he says some people, white and black, are uneducated, ill-informed, and have hate in their hearts. Mind you, none of this has anything to do with actual racism. Sadly, it is a trend that perpetuates and will more than likely keep inserting itself. People need to put aside their petty differences and come together. If not, we will continue to see the hate in black versus white. So I said, so explain to me what black racism includes beyond name calling. And he goes, it's the same as any racism. So he's basically trying to say that black people have this comparative form of racism that is like white supremacy and racism. And that's simply untrue. So then he says hating and discrimination to someone else based on their skin color, beliefs, etc. I think is all stupid. I'm white, but in actuality half Spanish. So then they want to sit there and say, oh, I'm a minority too. Let's be a big minority group and kumbaya together. So you shouldn't look at me as a white supremacist because I'm Spanish. No, you're not going to convince me that because Spain is in Europe. So get out of here. And then he says, apparently my tan didn't come through as much as my family's. I'm so tired of these white people claiming to not be white. They always want to not be white when they think it's going to get them something that they want. And then he goes, I grew up in a mixed neighborhood. I have traveled the world and find that as much beauty there is, no matter where you go, some people are filled with hate. I wonder why. Probably because white supremacists took their white supremacist mentality and cancerous disease and they spread it globally. So that's why you see a whole bunch of hate, white supremacists. And then he says, but if we want to actually see a difference, we all need to look at ourselves, better ourselves first, and then we can truly help others. Yeah, and you need to stop denying that racism is existent, and you need to just admit that racism is a white person phenomenon. No one else can be racist because they don't have the institutional power to affect the lives of white people. If you ask any white person, how does black supremacy and black racism affect white people? They can't tell you anything beyond you not liking them or them thinking you have hate in your heart. Just because you don't like a white person doesn't mean you have hate in your heart. Just because you don't want to date a white person does not mean you have hate in your heart. But they will sit here and use this as a means to manipulate you. And it just so happens that I have a very powerful radar that seems to be extremely sensitive to bullshit. So I understand it when it's coming to me in a manner that allows me to not be manipulated. So he's not going to sit here and run this stupid manipulation on me and act like there's an equal form of black racism that amounts to white racism when there's not. Because I told him, give me examples. So then I said discrimination and racism, number one, aren't the same thing. And they're not. Discrimination doesn't have to have anything to do with race. You can discriminate based on eye color. You can discriminate based on religion. You can discriminate based on age. You can discriminate based on sexual preference. Racism specifically means that your discrimination and your hate is directly because of race. See, how is it that white people created and defined racism, but they don't even know what it means? So you don't even know what the thing that you created means? Look at the definition. You wrote the definition of it, but you don't know what it means. To the point that you think that you can compare black people not liking you to systematic racism. Really. So I said, what I asked is for you to describe to me the system of black supremacy and how said system affects the lives of white people. You are acting as if they're the comparative form of black racism that's the same as the system of white supremacy that causes black people to not, or that causes white people to not be able to get jobs, housing, access to resources, that had them on a plantation for hundreds of years and hung from trees for the enjoyment of white supremacists. You're comparing black people disliking white people to a system of institutional racism and white supremacy. So, either give me some examples of how black supremacy compares to the system of white supremacy, or stop talking to me. Now, mind you, he stopped talking to me. And you know why? Because he can't give you any examples. Because I told him more than one time to give me an example, and he deflected. He deflected by saying, oh, it's the same. How is it the same, genius? Give me an example of what white people are being, how are white people being affected by this system of black supremacy? How are white people being affected by black racism against white people? The thing of it is I even challenged the white supremacist trolls. Please explain to me, white supremacist trolls, since you want to throw out black supremacy and say that it's a problem, please name me at least 4 components of black supremacy, okay? Then name me 4 ways that white people are affected in a negative manner by black racism, and not one of them cannot be name calling. You can't mention black people not liking white people or not wanting to date them. You can't even mention hating them as a way to do that. Because if you mention any of those, then you need to tell me, how do those things, how does me as a black person, let's say hypothetically I did hate you, how does that affect your life in a negative way? Let's say hypothetically I don't like you. How does that affect yourself, you in a negative way? How does me not liking you as a white person mean that I feel like I'm supreme over you? Please explain that to me, white supremacist trolls, since we already know you're going to be in my comments talking about that. I'm going to block you. And I'm letting you know that now. I'm going to block you. If you cannot tell me, how does black supremacy, first you need to identify the system of black supremacy. That's what you need to do. Identify the system of black supremacy and name me 4 components of it. 4 components of it that will allow black people to affect your lives in a negative manner. That's number 1. Then number 2, tell me how black racism is the same, and go over history and explain to me how black racism has disenfranchised white people and how it continues to disenfranchise white people. Since you want to say black people are racist so much, in fact, explain to me how any other race of people have a comparative, define me all these other racial groups, how do they affect white people with their racism and their supremacy. Explain that to me, please. Now, I just wanted to let you guys know that the thing of it is again, interracial dating is extremely toxic. There isn't any benefits to it at all. Black people benefit not one bit from interracial dating, but you keep doing it because you have low self-esteem. Raise your self-esteem to a degree that you don't feel like it's appropriate to be running around laid up with the very same people that you're complaining about. Are you kidding me? Explain to me how that makes sense to you. Please explain to me how it makes sense to you and how it's not a direct contradiction for you to be dating a white person while complaining about racism by white people. Explain to me how it makes sense to you that you can sit here and be laid up and dating or married to a white person when in less than 24 hours, 2 black men were killed and 1 was hung in Atlanta. Please do explain to me how that makes sense. Someone, anyone, just explain to me how that makes sense. Like, comment, and subscribe, share the video, and thanks for watching.